Welcome back. I am Roger Hanson. Tonight I will be your host. And joining us tonight is my co-host, Sonia Galactic, spelled Galactic with a T-E-C instead of T-E or T-I-C. And with her is our esteemed host. Now, on our esteemed panel, sorry, and on our panel, I want to start letting everybody know who's on there. There's Jason Quigley, aka MC Dirty Work, and he is joining us tonight, as well as David Campione, our
Hello.
our
Hello.
uh, our trusted timekeeper of magic. And then we have Nancy Planeta from the Vixen's Vault right here on Dragus Production. You can check her out every Wednesday night, same time as this show, and it is an excellent show. Then we have Mark Edworthy, the man of many faces, the guy who does stuff. And after that, we have my co-host, which is Sonia Galactic. She is one in a million. And then we have Jiva Piera. Now Jiva is a game developer and he has been doing a lot of work with me and in Rapid Glitch on Nostalgia Gaming Retro. So if you want to see some of the cool stuff he does, you're gonna have to start liking gaming. If not, sorry guys. But with that being said, I would love to have you guys go around and say a lot of cool stuff, but we better get on with the topic. What do you think?
Yep.
Okay, so
Sounds good to me.
Good idea. Go for it.
okay, so basically in June of 1908, okay, the skies over Siberia ignited. Okay, the Tunguski event flattened forests for hundreds of miles. Eyewitnesses reported a fireball brighter than the sun and a shock wave that knocked people from their feet, okay? No crater was found, no meteorite retrieved. Scientists call it one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. But this is where we go further than just Tunguska. Tesla, working in New York decades earlier, claimed he had transmitted energy wirelessly across the globe. Could his experiments, even inadvertently, have influenced Tunguska? Tonight, we ask whether human ingenuity may have brushed against forces we barely understand. Let's begin with the fundamental question. Could Tesla's concept of wireless energy have been capable of producing an effect like Tunguska? And with that, I'm going to open it up first to my co-host Sonia, let her give her take on it and go from there.
Hi guys. I would say absolutely, definitely. That's probably the whole thing, really. Yeah, and that's pretty much all I got to say about that. Nancy?
Well, I mean, it's a complicated issue because a lot of the things we talk about when we talk about Nikola Tesla, because all of his research was confiscated or quote unquote disappeared, it was disappeared after his death. We are kind of grasping at straws and we're going at theoreticals. So in other words, you're basing a lot of information off what he stated, but you're not actually able to see the outlines of the technology we're talking about.
Right.
Now, do I believe Nikola Tesla was capable of that? Yes. He's a person, when you actually really start studying his work and looking at his work, his brain worked differently than most. He reminds me of a little bit of Albert Einstein, except I think he was actually more intelligent than Einstein. If I was going to put him in any category when it came to people, I would say he was most likely Asperger's, like Elon Musk, personality-wise, because of the way he compartmentalizes information and his antisocial. type of personality, which, believe it or not, Elon Musk also has. He's not a very social person. He's very uncomfortable in social situations. He's had to work on it for years to even be able to do what he does. So with Nikolai, he was working on the types of energy that to a government have no place because they're not something that is profitable. It's something that's kind of like, I always put it in the same grocery basket as marijuana. Why was marijuana illegal for so long in the United States? Well, it was illegal because they couldn't figure out a way to actually control it and profit from it. So in other words, anybody could plant it. It was a weed. You could throw the damn seeds in your backyard and have a nice, beautiful marijuana plant pretty much anywhere you lived in the continental United States within, 3 months. True story. So they were trying to find ways. And what did they end up doing? Marlboro ended up what? Patenting a cloned marijuana seed. And then suddenly we had all these movements to legalize it around the country and to control it. So the government has like the patents on marijuana, what can be sold, what cannot be sold. And they do it under the guise of your health. Well, we're gonna sell you the stuff we know is healthy because you never know what the other stuff's gonna have in it. Oh, great, thanks a lot. But it's the same thing with Nikola Tesla. Tesla's technologies allowed for people to basically access energies, different forms of energies that wouldn't require a main belt to distribute. So when you're talking that time period, you had other patents that were there that would be huge moneymakers. Huge. Okay. Not so much Tesla. And Tesla was very determined. And that was one thing, again, if you do your research on him, he was all about bringing things to people for the advancement of humanity. He was not so much about making the money. The man died dirt poor. No joke. Like in a hovel apartment in Manhattan. Very, very poor. So when we look at what he did do, the coils, look at the Tesla coils. What do they do? They're transferring energy through what? The air. There's no wire involved in a Tesla coil. A Tesla coil, when it's transmitting between two coils, there's no wire connection. It's a transmission. So yeah, was he capable of doing that in 1908? Yes, I believe he was. I 100% believe he was. Do I think it could have caused the Tunguska event? I have seen stranger things. And I can tell you that they do not tell you the truth about anything when it comes to that type of technology, because they're going to patent it, they're going to lock it down, and they're going to use it for their own reasons. And we have found that out time and time and time again when we've trusted what they've told us. Oh, we trust you. Yes, you would never do that to us. And then we find out there was some crazy X-ray heart attack device that the CIA was using in the 1970s to kill off their enemies, even though they swore they didn't have one. So it's, again, yeah, it is very plausible. And the way seismic activity works in the planet, yeah. And that's not even, guys, I'm going to pass it off to the next person because I could keep going, but I'm just going to put the little subnote on there. There's another experiment that is hushed and veiled in secrecy, and you can never get a confirmation, but there are witnesses who are still alive to this day. And that was the Philadelphia experiment. And you're talking the same type of deal. Go ahead.
I just had to say something about the heart attack gun. Yeah, I mean they didn't have the heart attack gun. Then they literally, was it Time magazine? I'm not sure if it was, but there was a magazine that actually had Barry Goldwater on the front of it holding the heart attack gun, the shellfish gun, whatever it was.
And it's on the same lines of like V2K technology, or what causes Frey syndrome. Or Fry syndrome, however you want to pronounce it. They swore it didn't exist. They swore that everybody was just on crack. Oh, Havana syndrome? No, it could not be V2K technology. No, that doesn't exist. And then you go on the U.S. Army site from 2015 and the archived areas of the Army site. There you see blueprints of a V2K device, just on the United States Army website. And then you start reading about events that occurred in the 1970s where, we attacked a Russian embassy using an auditory device. So they don't tell the truth. We're just, and they'll say it's because of national security. Yeah, I'm sure making people think wild thoughts in their heads because you're emitting a frequency at their brain. Yeah, sure. You really don't want to tell us about that because then we're going to question our reality all the way around.
I would have
Safe,
traded
but
our
again,
national security 15, 25 years ago for the world that we live in today. I'm fine with having an insecure nation compared to this slave world we live in.
again, but and the thing with Tunguska, look at the timing of the events. And I always say this to people, you have to look at the full picture. People tend to monofocus. They only look at one aspect of something. They're not looking at everything else that's going on at the same time. 1908 to 1910, what were we looking at? We were looking at a different economic state beginning to build. Because we had what? We had the Fed that was starting to go into place in the United States. We had banking systems that were starting up. You know, you're forgetting it's only a few years after that, you know, all of the, I guess you could say, the big money men in the United States who disagreed with the Fed died on the Titanic. So, I mean, this is all in the same time period. And we were in a competition with Russia at that point. Russia was shut off from the rest of the world. People, again, you don't know your time periods. Yes, the Romanov family, yes, they're related to the royal family of Great Britain, 100%. Yes. In fact, Nikolai Romanov's wife was the granddaughter of Queen Victoria. So, I mean, there is a blood relation there. But as a country, Russia kind of kept to themselves.
This is just before the Bolshevik Revolution. So
Yes.
you said 1808, 1810 was, as a country, as a nation, it was still relatively peaceful at the time.
No, they were not. Not internally. Absolutely not. They were at war with Germany.
Well, yeah, there were pockets. There are pockets, but as a sort of concisus of a country, they were relatively peaceful.
What was the problem with Nikolai? Nikolai was trying to do what? Why did the Bolsheviks take him out? Do you know? Because I can tell you one of the main reasons. And it was not like the French was, let them eat cake. It was not that. It was because he was trying to modernize. He was trying to bring his military and his forces into more of a Western type modernization. He was all about, trying to organize and modernize. And unfortunately, the way it worked for him, to do that, he had to take all the resources for the people and put it into the military. Didn't end well for him, did it now? But why would he do that? What else was going on at that time? There's a lot of innovation that came out of Russia that we were never made aware of until literally Russia fell under Reagan. Mr. Reagan or Mr. President, take that wall down. Yeah. And basically, he actually told everybody to go eat donuts. I think we all remember that pretty well because it was really embarrassing. But the fact is that we found out all this research that Russia's been doing since like the turn of the century. Research on electricity, research on genetics, research on all of these things. I mean, during World War II, we found out they were trying to build super soldiers genetically. They were way ahead of us.
Nancy, this didn't become a sort of national pride until 1920 onwards.
Now, I do have to mention something. Jiva actually it would be perfect for this because he is in England, but he is actually born in Russia. Isn't that true, Jiva?
No, I'm born in Lithuania, sir.
Lithuania. So,
how dare you?
Sorry about that.
Beautiful area.
Well, it was a part of the Soviet Union. Yes, sure.
So,
I was a
baby. Lithuania is beautiful. Oof. I'm jealous. What a beautiful area.
I am not jealous. I'm massively disappointed in my country.
I'm talking geography, but yeah.
Geography. That's pretty much what's left.
So now,
and I'm not. Anyways, not the point. The point is, I wanted to point this out to you, Nancy.
Yes.
Remember that it's all happening. Tunguska, 1908, right?
Yes.
General relativity was not yet done, basically, right? We have general relativity. That's the same year, I think.
1930s,
As far as we know,
think.
this
Or
is
even,
my
or
problem.
maybe even 1912, I think. So,
But
yes,
it's as far as you
Nikola
know,
Tesla was on top of the curve when it comes to electromagnetism and all of that, but we didn't even had quantum theory, like the basics done up until like 1930s,
But
I think,
okay,
1955.
but where did the quantum theory come
1950.
from? But
How
let's
do
wait,
you even?
stop. Where did
We-
quantum theory come from? Do you know? It came from Ramadan. It came from a dream.
You
String
could
theory
say
literally
that,
came from a
but
dream.
it was propelled by Einstein's general theory of relativity. That's what kicked off.
Yes and no. The actual that's the main physics area. You're talking quantum physics.
yeah.
Einstein wasn't into quantum physics.
But Nancy, we are talking about if we are talking about direct energy weapons, right, or direct energy,
Correct.
like
Well, no, not intentionally. I don't think Tesla did this intentionally. That's what I'm saying. I think it was
experiment
a
go
direct
wrong.
energy weapon. I think it was. No, not even experiment gone wrong. Experiment where they didn't know what the outcome was going to be. And I think we've done that several times. And I think Tesla had the intelligence to do it and probably didn't even know he did it, to be very honest with you, because
well, Bolsheviks would have the power to do that, obviously. But do you think Tsarist Russia back then would be involved in these kind of like programs?
I don't think it was intentional. But if you look at the history of Tsarist Russia and all of the little secret programs that they had that we've discovered since the fall. I mean, and even since the fall, that's what's crazy. The records that have been released, you have to go on some really bibliophile sites to find them. I know, because I've gone looking. They were so advanced compared to what we're told is current in the United States, and even by today's standards, some of the stuff you're reading it and you're like, holy crow, man, they were light years ahead of us. But then you have to censor yourself and say, well, but they treat us like we're idiots. They literally treat the population in this country like we're a bunch of monkeys. They give us the minimal amount of information when they're light years ahead of us.
Well, I do agree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real psyop on the population when it comes to science, because whatever you're looking at, and you guys know this, I say it on my show constantly, they are at least 50 years ahead of us. Whatever tech we're holding in our hands today is already outdated by 50 years when it comes to the military.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
It's just the honest.
All the fancy tech is first implemented into military for the military. That's for sure.
When you see
even the microwaves, mobile phones, you name it. For sure.
Well, even the nanotechnology. Yes. I laugh because people say nanotechnology is so new, and I'm like, no, you retard. They had nanotechnology on Hollywood television in the late 2000s, going into the early 2000s. You had shows like Stargate where you had nanotechnology in the body. All that stuff, we were shown it 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and it was already outdated if it was on the TV. That's where you don't understand how deep the psyop goes. They have to show you, because then when it gets revealed, you're not going to be startled. Like, why are there little microscopic bugs that are mechanical?
True, I agree with you. But when I'm talking about Tunguska, 100 years ago, more than 100 years ago, right? I'm trying to put myself in the kind of in the timeline and all the geopolitics that went through back then, right? So we have rapid industrialization. Tsarist Russia is doing their own thing. Germany and the UK is basically at each other's throats. United States is worrying about itself back then. It didn't have any imperialistic goals, you might argue, back then.
We were actually in I think we were still Mexico-Cuba problems going on back at that time period.
Yes,
that was
you could make an argument, but it was like this divisive. It was it was not a global world like we have today, and this kind of
It was,
Like-
but it was a genetic global world. That's what I'm saying. Even the United States, our leaders at that point in time had genetic relations overseas to the royal families.
True,
All of
but
the royal families overseas are genetically related to each other.
I'll
So,
make the point that
there's
Tsarist
connection.
Russia couldn't make it wouldn't be able to finance that kind of a project. Now
That I do
Remember,
it had to be done by
remember at
UK or United States. So
Remember at
Germany.
that time.
No, hold on a
what
minute.
was
Let's do this one at a time. Now, Mark,
Okay.
give Mark Edworthy a chance to say something,
You
and
omit-
then
you're
Jason.
missing an entire economic pointer, a cultural pointer. At that time, 1910, up to the reforms of the mid-1920s and 1930s, Russia was still an agricultural country. It hasn't really what we would consider as being a sort of industrial, for the time, a Western industrial country. It was still an agricultural country. Whereas Europe and the US were changing from agriculture to industry back in the early 19th century. Russia didn't catch up until the reforms of the 1920s and 30s.
Now, before anybody
So-
comments, hold on. Let MC Messy Pants
Thanks,
say
Roger.
something.
I'll make this. I'll be brief.
Get 'em.
Good directing there. I just wanted to say about Tunguska, the epicenter. That always tripped me out. That the epicenter, if you notice, the trees were all pointed north, then south, east, west. They did some kind of experiment with something that looked like match heads. I don't think they were match heads, but something like that. And they blew something up relatively 30, 40 feet above it. And those match heads acted exactly like the trees and the tree patterns at Tunguska, where there was an actual, you could tell there was an actual epicenter. There was a middle where everything else just fanned out. So very interesting.
But I think what bothers me with Tunguska is there's no remnants. In other words, if there was an explosion of a meteorite that close to the planet, and they're trying to tell you that it's kind of like a 9/11 situation, where everything was eviscerated. Anything that was related to that object that did that was gone. It was eviscerated, destroyed in the explosion, which makes no sense. You would still have in the trees, there would be something embedded there, even if it was microdust, there would be embedding of the object. They didn't find any embeddings of the object. That makes me
how hard did
okay.
That is weird.
Sorry,
That is really weird.
How hard did they try to look? How far
Yeah,
was
you're talking
the
1908.
search?
Yes.
Yeah,
Well,
precisely.
and it happened in
good point,
It was
Mark.
in 1908. Yep. And it could have melted away, but it's still, you would have found some type, especially radiation, you would have found some trace of it in the water as the snows melted. There would have been trace. Even back then, there would have been trace. They would
But
have
would
found
it have been
something.
documented
Now,
also? Wouldn't it be documented? It
Well,
might not have been
there
documented
is
just because
is eyewitness testimony of people who were there in the area when it happened. They didn't get the testimony
No, I'm
until a
just
year
making
after.
I'm just making.
But there is
There's something that somebody's looking for this stuff and actually documented it, and the documenting survived until
even
today.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can look at trees now. Okay, see those trees, a lot of them would probably be there. Okay, just because of the age of trees and how long they live. So you take a tree now and you cut it, and an event happened 100 years ago. You can find evidence of that event in the rings of the tree. Okay, that's how it works in nature. But they can't find any evidence of this event buried in these trees that shows it's something that came in.
So people are actually looking. People are actually.
Yes, of course they were. It's the greatest mystery.
No. Okay.
I wasn't trying to say that it was something from outer space or anything. I was just noting the point that they were fanned out, and that's interesting to me.
Well, because it shows that you're right. There was an epicenter above ground because it had been, there's no crater. That's the other interesting thing.
Right.
There is no crater related to this event. So again, if it was something that had touched the ground, of course it would leave an embedding. It would leave a crater. So whatever this was, it happened higher up. It was at an elevation.
It happened in the air somewhere. Right.
Correct. But again,
But you
I always
can
kind
explain
of
this fairly easily with a meteorite theory.
but there's no
If you
there's
have
no
a
evidence.
medium-sized meteorite which is unstable, maybe it's built, it has a lot of rock material and not metals inside of it, then it would break up because
It
of
would
the
still embed in the trees. That's
True.
what I'm saying. It would still
true.
embed.
That is true.
And that's, I mean, we had an event, 5 years ago with very similar type event where an explosion, a meteorite came in, exploded. I forget what city it was over in Europe. And it left trace materials all over the place.
Big too, you would think, my God, it would have to with something that size.
Yes. That's what I'm saying. There are disturbing things about Tunguska that don't, but again, I have to pull myself back and say, well, you're talking 1908 in the middle of nowhere. So to be fair, yes, we have to hold that in check and keep that at the top of our head. But there's so many blanks here that really bother me. And I look at the Philadelphia experiment. I look at what that was also Tesla technology. And I have to say, could this have been what he started with? We know there was a preceding event to the Philadelphia experiment, another very similar event that involved a riverboat. And Tesla was involved in that too.
We spoke about that my first time on the Philadelphia experiment and the Tesla tech, the coils on there.
Yes. So it's like, where was he working on something? We know he was at that in 1908. He would have been working with what's his face? Oh God,
Edison.
Edison.
Morgan.
Edison.
J.P. Morgan or Westinghouse?
Well, Westinghouse.
Well, no, Edison was the other scientist that he collaborated with.
Yeah.
He, now you're talking the AC/DC battle, but the fact is that, I mean, Edison won because Edison came up with a form of energy that they could make a lot of money off of.
Well, Edison was a capitalist, a good old capitalist.
Yes.
That's why he prevailed.
Correct. I mean, but again, you can't, I always say this, you can't take away from what Tesla was capable of, but you can say maybe he had to do a lot of these experiments very much on the download because he had a partner, and you got to be careful. But we do know there is evidence that he was working on different things that did do strange, anomalous effects. So is it possible? Well, anything's possible because we don't know exactly what technology he had at that point. We don't know exactly what he knew at that point. We just know he had a brain that was capable of thinking in ways most of us cannot. On the other side of that, could it have been, we have to look at the thought, could it have been a UFO? Could it have been an object intelligently operated that came in? Could it have been a weapon that was being worked on that went backwards? Because if it was a weapon the Russians were working on, or even the Germans,
not a chance. But imagine Germany at that time. Imagine Germany at that time testing a energy weapon or whatever in the middle of Siberia. It's not feasible at back end then.
Here's where I go though with Germany. And because again, I know quite a bit of history from that time period, and I always kind of tell people, you look at Germany as a technology developmental country, and during World War II, they kind of had us, excuse the expression, by the balls in many ways when it came to technology and how far they were advancing, how quickly they were advancing. And I always said it always goes back to an event. There was an event. I was like in 1936, there was an event in the Black Forest in Germany. It was supposedly a UFO event, and supposedly they recovered that craft. Anybody can look that up. That is information available easily. There was this event covered. After that, we had the Bell design. We had all these innovative technologies suddenly starting to come out of Germany, and very advanced. So it's a very short window, like itty bitty window for that technology to have gone from Orville and Wilbur Wright, basically flapping their arms and trying to get airborne, to what Germany was producing in World War II. Okay, that's only like a 25, 30-year window, if that. Think about that on the chronology of our time.
With massive inflation and political instability.
Yep.
Yeah, it is quite impressive.
That's what I'm saying.
I'll give them that.
And then you've also got the fact that Germany was very much into looking for very ancient objects. And all of these objects had certain, I guess you could say, aspects to them that made you, if you're an intelligent person and I love the Ark of the Covenant. I love looking at the Ark of the Covenant and actually examining how it's built and what it was supposedly built with and what the effects of the Ark supposedly were. Because it is built like a little thermonuclear reactor. And if you actually look at the fact that it was covered in gold, well, gold is what? A conductor. So, and people died of what I would call radiation poisoning if they were exposed to it. So it's one of those things where you have to think and say, well, maybe they were playing, maybe somebody found some ancient technology and they were playing with it.
Imagine beams of energy from Earth into the sky, bending particles, altering winds, even producing pulses like those seen in Tunguska. Could the human hand have met the forces of nature here? Now, whenever we talk about this stuff, what the most important thing for us to discuss is HARP. Now, when we've been talking Tunguska, now we move on to HARP. HARP's high-frequency array in Alaska can beam energy into the ionosphere, heating it up and bending radio waves. While this is done for communication and research, the parallels of Tesla's ambitions are striking. In theory, if energy is focused enough, the sky itself could amplify these waves, creating disturbances far beyond what the experiments intend. With that, I want to open the discussion up to the panel, and I want to start it up with asking you guys what your thoughts are on how energy propagates through the ionosphere, for one. And then I also want to see what your thoughts are on natural versus artificial atmospheric phenomenons, as well as historical speculations that we've been having about Tesla and Tunguska, But I do want to bring up more on HARP now, and with that, I want to kind of get into what Nancy has been discussing or trying to discuss on her show about Operation Bluebeam. And with that, I want to have Nancy kind of give a little bit on that one.
Do you want me to start with Bluebeam or HARP?
With what your thoughts are, especially on Bluebeam or HARP, in concerns with Bluebeam, especially when it comes to like Aurora Borealis, which was what you guys were discussing just a little while ago, and like with HARP.
Well, okay? So first question you have to ask is, are your listeners familiar with Bluebeam and Serge Manasse and the entire supposed government project that's been apparent from what he told us was going on since the 70s? Now, Bluebeam is supposedly a master plan. And when I say master plan, I mean it's something that the blueprints of this were drawn up in the late 60s into the early 70s and added to and worked on, and were supposed to be executed by no later than 2030. And this is written, these are documents that Mr. Manasse actually presented to people in the 1990s. And honestly, he did lose his life over this. So it's one of those things, it's like Phil Schneider. When somebody comes out with information like this, and it's very fantastical, I have to tell you, at that time when it was released, because I remember when this was circulating, to give you all a background, I've been doing conspiracy type radios for a very long time, but I've been involved in this conspiracy community for a very long time. And Bluebeam is supposedly a holographic, I guess you could say, event that's going to be exhibited upon the entire planet. So no matter where you're at, you're going to be exposed to this holographic event. And depending on where you're at, it's going to be 100% structured to your area, your culture. And the targeting is religion. So supposedly we're going to be visited by an alien craft. Okay, this is the storyline that we've been told. It will be an alien visitation. The craft will be tremendous in size. There will be more than one. There are going to be visitors within these crafts, our greatest religious icons, Jesus, Muhammad, all of these people, I mean, Buddha, the people or the religious icons that have, or the deities that have run cultures for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And they're going to basically give us a message that tells us that they're all one. And we need to all conform under the one religion, the one belief, the one order of the world. Okay, that is Bluebeam. And again, very fantastical in the 90s. People were like, oh, come on, that's crazy. Nobody has that kind of technology. Nobody could even hope to have that kind of technology. Well, yeah, we actually did, even in the 90s, have that kind of holographic technology. And that's what people don't understand. We've had holographic technology at a minimal since the 1940s, easily. Moving into the 90s, they already had, especially the military aspects of things, had already refined it to a means that we can't really grasp. Because when we think of holographic, we think of what Hollywood shows us. Okay, it shows us these digitized images that, you can put your hand through and you could, you definitely know it's not real. If anything, you'd say it was a ghost or this, or, if you weren't exposed to it before, you would go to supernatural realms rather than say that's an actual person. These technologies have refined to the point where you could be having a conversation with somebody in front of you, swear to God that they're actually a person, and it's not. It's a hologram. Now, take that on top of the satellite arrays that we have. Okay. Now, and I'm not, SpaceX added to it. I mean, we are literally there's a net around the entire planet of satellites that are capable of transmitting to each other as well as to the planet. We have multiple facilities on the planet that could be, in fact, the 5G towers is when they started going up, I started saying, that's when I actually on my show started saying, guys, a little uncomfortable here, because that would allow for a really great relay for Bluebeam technology. Absolutely. They're setting something up. Not sure what yet, but they're setting something up. Then we have, of course, HARP. Now, HARP has been going for a long time. What does HARP do? HARP manipulates the atmosphere in a huge way. It allows for conductivity. It allows for the excitement of ions. It can control weather, but it can do more than that. It can displace things. It can cause seismic reactions, which, by the way, that is also part of Bluebeam, seismic activity. And all of this, again, goes back to religion, because they're using your religious values against you. Now, we have this 3-eye atlas that has been discovered and is, coming at us at light speed, literally. And there's so many things that come out every day. I kind of laugh because I get updates every day on this object. And every day it's something new, fantastical thing about it. Oh, it's got metallic pieces to it that are not natural. Really, you can see that at that distance, because honest to God, you couldn't find a plane that went down, and that Malaysian Airlines plane. Yep, you still haven't found it, but you can see the metallic on this. Okay, I'm cool. I'm on board. Yep, got it. It's firing out from the front rather than the back. So in other words, they were trying to say it's a comet. Well, tail's in the wrong spot. For some reason, excuse the language, folks, the ass is in the face of the comet. That makes great sense. It works, really. Then you had the trajectory, which no way, it's natural if you're believing the commentary that you're being told. Because again, this is my problem with populations. We are subject to the commentary. You are subject to whatever commentary they want to tell you. So we're getting these updates and we're being told this is not natural. And you've actually got a Harvard scientist basically saying, panic, 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 stirring people up. Now, supposedly this thing is supposed to be here by early November. Okay. And look at everything else that's going on in the world right now. You have got major upheaval. Forget what happened with Charlie Kirk in the United States, which is, pretty much got people at each other's throats over here. And, they're talking civil war, although good luck with that. But again, it's not just here. France, you had a complete, pretty much tossover of government in France in the last week. All this going on. Nepal, you had Nepal's entire government pretty much burned at the stake. Don't talk about that very much. You had Qatar hit by Israel. Again, instigating. You've got Russia supposedly making moves on Poland. But in the interim, you had Ukraine hitting Russia with drones. So all this activity is going, all this chaos, which again, by the way, was part of Bluebeam. If you read the Bluebeam plan, the world was gonna be stirred into this crazy chaos before this alien ship came in, but none of it was real. None of it was real. It was literally to fool and call the population. So, yeah, is it scary? Is HARP utilized with this? Well, yeah, HARP is a vast network. And you forget, this is another thing where once again, and yeah, you can call me the most distrustful person of any technology or government on the planet, because I am, and I have good reason to be. The fact is, they told us for years HARP didn't exist. Oh, and then it was, it's a collegiate program. Really? Oh, that's a really well-funded collegiate program. Okay. And then it was, well, no, these facilities aren't HARP. Oh, wait, HARP's been shut down. No, it didn't exist, but we shut it down. Okay, thank you for that. And then suddenly it's not shut down. And it's just, there's so much that doesn't make any sense. Then you involve NexRad radar, which is the newer levels of HARP. They're using NexRad, they're using microwave, they're using all these frequencies that don't just stir up the atmosphere, they stir up the planet. I mean, you cannot use these frequencies and not have seismic reaction from it. You cannot use these, and if you have seismic reaction, you're going to have volcanic reaction. Sorry, that's just the way it works. They go in sync. Not beyond that, you have human reaction to it. Why? Because humans react to these frequencies, whether we like it or not. It's part of our anatomy. We have magnetite in our brains. We are going to react to these frequencies. We were a migratory species at one point. So yes, are they setting us up for a Bluebeam? Oh, yeah. And especially now, because again, with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, what has that done? That has stirred up religious fervor in the United States. The one place where they were trying to drill the religion at everybody. Nope. Now you have drilled it right back in again, and unfortunately to an extremist level. Overseas, you've got the war between Israel and everybody else. That is a religious war. Is it or is it not? I mean, it is religion. That is what's fueling all of this. So what better time to try a last-ditch effort attempt for the powers that be that have controlled us for thousands of years to try to keep their control? Because that's also the other thing with Bluebeam. Bluebeam was supposed to be basically that last push by the powers that be to control everything, to get everybody united under one banner, call the people that don't want to cooperate, and basically keep us as a nice, controllable population. And you see it in so many different, I've said that, you've seen so many moves over the last couple of decades to try to bring the population levels down. And it always cracks me up because people say, we're overpopulated. The planet's overpopulated. It can't handle it. And I'm, again, guys, I've lived in the United States for a long time. And yeah, our cities are stacking packs. They are crowded. And it is, I hate the cities. It is nasty. But I will also tell you, I have traveled this country by road. And I love doing that. And there are I can tell you, you go through Texas, drive through the state of Texas. You'll go for hours and hours and hours looking at nothing but trees
or New
fields.
Mexico or Arizona.
Yep. Even Colorado. You get
so much space.
Florida, you drive through swamps for hours. Nothing. And then you literally think as you're going through these swamps, God, please don't let me break down. Please, for the love of everything, I do not want to break down out here because we're talking the hills have eyes. Oh, this is not a place.
Good video game.
But it's true. Most of our populations in
Plus, you
every
got gators and all that stuff that's
snakes.
going to rip you apart at night. Oh, golly. Yeah, water moccasins where if you don't get to a hospital in 15 minutes, you could be dead.
Gators,
Don't forget about big
crocodiles.
cats too.
In fact, I pushed a video the other day about a wild boar that got into somebody's house in Central Florida.
Yeah.
It just walked right in, and it was
saw
a
that.
giant sow. I mean, she was huge, and it's like a 400-pound boar, and those things are
Nasty.
beyond vicious. Yeah,
Yeah,
they'll
if they
kill
charge you, you're done.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah. They're
But
worse
so-
than other animals. Yeah, they're
Guess
really
what I'm
bad.
saying is, again, we've been lied to. You're being lied to. People, most of the population is on the sea border areas of any country. People stay towards the water. I mean, even New York City is literally, Jason and I were talking about on the last show with 9/11, the fact that the seawall is right underneath where the towers are, because that area is under, it's below sea level. New Orleans, the party city of the country, it's in a giant basin. The whole freaking city is below sea level. I mean, these are our mass population areas. Why? And don't say it's for agriculture, because truly we have plenty of agricultural land that is, there's nobody on it growing anything. It's just there.
The
So-
island of Manhattan sports the most expensive real estate in the world, I'm pretty sure. I know in the United States.
But
You
in
know-
New York City also got a large agricultural area, especially in the north.
New York City, maybe
No,
Central
Oh,
Park.
New York State.
New York State. New York State.
Long
Upper
Island.
State, yes. Upper state is agricultural. You have a lot of apple orchards and everything in upstate New York. It's actually quite beautiful. Upstate is really pretty. But you still have
I've been to
your
Blue Mountain and it was great.
Now, one thing I do want to ask you guys is, when it comes to HARP, though, when it comes to propagating energy propagation, basically, does anybody know exactly how HARP is supposed to do that with the ionosphere?
Well, the problem
I
being
could
is that
tell you. Oh, go ahead.
no, you go, Jason, because I was going to say HARP releases little tidbits, but just like anything else that is running under a national security type situation, you're not getting anywhere close to the information you need. A lot of what is found out is basically because they've moved a lot of their relays into populated areas. So people are questioning. Go ahead.
A lot of people think also that when they hear the word HARP, they think of Alaska, and that's all they think of. But that's not the only, that's where their main headquarters is. But they have one in Puerto Rico. They have other stations. But other than that, they have like pontoons that float with little mini HARP stations. They look like, the Epcot Center thing. That's just to
SBX1.
That's
Yes.
just to protect the
SBX1
equipment.
and 2.
Yep.
And then don't forget, back when I was in Panama, stationed in Panama, 89, 87 to 91, 92, there were 127 of those HARP places. Not
That's how you know it's
just Alaska.
Floating ones.
And of course, that was just some of the ones that they told us. So, in how many, other countries have their own thing? Or is it ran by the Vatican under the table?
Well,
You can
you've got
go
HARP
online and
stations.
search for images of these things, and
Yeah.
they'll show you image after image after image of the mini harps floating around on these two pontoons, and they go all over the whole world, these mini harp stations. I guess they can follow hurricanes, etc. I mean, they go all in the salt water wherever they can and want to go. So
Well, they also have their stationaries. I mean, because Antarctica is littered with it. I mean, HARP is all over Antarctica. and
Right.
little stationary bases. And it's like, then you also have to, like I said, you have to look at, I always say, as above, so below. Such a telling expression, because it works in so many ways. It's not
Well, you got
just
the one
what's
in
on
Puerto Rico too, where so many hurricanes start right in Hurricane Alley there. So you got one in a hot, desolate, hurricane-producing area. Then you've got one in one of the coldest regions in the world, right sitting smack dab next to Russia.
Hello, everybody, and now we are back with the final push in the last part of this episode. Now, the thing that I want to mention is this. I want to mention HAARP's high-frequency arrays in Alaska and how they can beam energies into the ionosphere. They can heat it up, and they can bend radio waves. Now, I mentioned this earlier, and I said that they do say that this is for communications and research, okay? But I've also done research on this myself, and I found out through the original patent that was made on HAARP in Texas back in the 1980s that it also has implications of mirroring aurora borealis to where it can create an image of an aurora borealis where it looks like it in every single way, but it's not that. It's just the mirror of one, so I would love to talk about that and open it up and see what your guys' thoughts are on that. So with that, I'm going to open it up to the panel and leave it at that. So go for it, guys.
Well, that's kind of broad. Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, again, you're talking about the ionospheric freaking, I guess you could say, aspect of their facilities and what it is actually capable of. Because I know they say it's conspiratorial when you talk about anything beyond it doing very localized things, because that is the one thing that HAARP always emphasizes about their research. It's very localized. It's very temporary. Does anybody here know how sound actually works, how frequencies actually work? Because every time they say it's very temporary, I start laughing. I can't help it.
Wait, Nancy, I will interrupt you.
Go.
Aurora borealis is not a phenomena that is like strange. But what you cannot do with artificial arrays, I guess, is to create auroras. Why? Especially the size of that we have in Antarctica, right? Why? Because you have to have a lot of energetic photons. You cannot generate those. You would need, like, it's not possible to do for humans inside of Earth. So
to see them in Miami is strange.
But
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
I mean, that's a rainbow effect. That's a rainbow effect that you are seeing if you're seeing it.
Well, you guys do understand how much power can be generated from the ionosphere itself, right? Like it's just.
But Roger, do you think we can mimic solar wind type of energies?
That's kind of the question being asked right there. You know what I mean? It's.
You had China who created a fusion unit that literally is hotter than the sun.
Yeah.
So when you ask these questions, are we capable? Oh, we're quite capable. But, and again, I'm going to point out the fact that we have a new type of aurora that's never been seen before that showed up in the last 20 years called Steve. That is actually the name of it. Steve, Steve. Real common name. And if you look at it, it is not normal in any way, shape, or form. And when it first started appearing, I know people shot it down real quick because everybody was saying, is that natural? Because it's not normal. And the normal, even what we're seeing now, the colors of the aurora they're different. They're much stronger, number one. They're much brighter than they've ever been. And the aurora is showing up in colors it should not be able to.
But then expanding on that thought, that then they should, whatever energy is beamed, it has to be done from space. cannot do
Well,
this
you
internally
think they
from
can do it
Earth.
from space? Supposedly, Ronald Reagan put a bunch of Star Wars freaking objects up in
Oh, do
space
you
that were
believe
carried.
that? Do you really believe that?
I think it wasn't. I don't think it was nuclear warheads, but I think we have had things in space for a very long time.
I
The
mean,
Black
but
Knight. We don't even know what that is.
do you think they honored their agreements though? In the
No, I don't think anybody honors their agreements. Are you kidding me?
Well, a lot of the Star Wars did go through because remember a large influence in that and under Thatcher. So we saw well, we've got records of what we agreed with the US in relation to the Star Wars project.
I mean, you guys forget my dad. That's, I told y'all he was a DoD contractor, and he worked on the microchips for the space shuttle program. So NASA was part of my life. The Air Force was part of my life.
Well, now the
And
Space
that was the one
Force.
thing
I
that
wonder
Reagan,
what's that all about.
That's right near me. In fact, it's very interesting because, Mark, just as a reference, John Bell sent me a video the other day of something he caught in his backyard. And I could probably post it into the chat. But there's a lot of activity where I live in the skies because we have the Space Force headquarters pretty much directly across from us, between us and NASA. And we can see the NASA launches from.
That was the one thing that Reagan wouldn't back down on when he and I guess it was Putin, whoever was in there, Gorbachev, I don't know who it was, but when we were talking about nuclear proliferation, and apparently we were this close to getting rid of like 80, however many % of our missiles, it was Reagan saying, no, we're keeping our work with the Star Wars program, that broke the back of that whole deal. I mean, he really believed in it, as far as I understand. I didn't know anything about a deal or whatever.
Well, it was interesting because with Reagan, if you notice, he was kind of like Donald Trump. And when Donald Trump came into office, there were all these things that a lot of people have been asking for, and we still haven't seen. And I'm going to make note of that. And I'm a fan of Donald Trump, but I'm still going to say, we wanted to see an audit of our gold reserves. Still haven't seen that. We wanted.
Yeah, whatever happened to that? He hasn't even talked about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure there are no gold reserves. I'm just going to be very honest with you. But I mean, we can't even give Germany back their gold. Hello. But I mean, there are things that, like when Reagan first came into office, he was gung ho. He was the guy that figured out the Iran hostage situation. Right? He was on fire. Then he gets almost assassinated. And literally right after that, everything he was working on kind of altered. It was really strange. Not really.
Baby Bush took over is what happened. That's why he got
Big
out
Bush
in
took
4
over.
years. He didn't even want an extra 4 years. I'm sorry, not Baby Bush, Papa Bush.
Yeah.
Poppy
Big
Bush.
Bush.
He didn't even want an extra 4 years because he was in there for 6 years de facto under Reagan and then another 4 years as his own president.
And it was funny because, I'm going to point out the nicknames of both Bush and Bush Sr. when they were Skull and Bones, which was Gog and Magog. And if you go look those up, you're going to be a little disturbed by what they are. And that's not, again, that is not conspiracy. That is a matter of record. So it's there's a lot of functioning parts here that were not being shown, and a lot of secrecy that is still to this day holding true. But I say to everybody, I see everything that's happening right now. You're seeing the acceleration of, and the interjection of NEXRAD radar into HARP. And NEXRAD is another thing that can do very much the same thing that the facilities up in Alaska can do. NEXRAD, that's why we're seeing the donut formations with storms now. You're seeing these weird donut formations before the storms form on the radars. And, the meteorologists are at a loss. No, you're not. They can't say it on air. These are not natural things. They're not. The aurora has not been natural. Whatever is going on, and I know they keep saying, well, the solar storms, and I know right now, very interestingly enough, we have a gigantic hole in the sun that has just rotated back into view, that it's been there since February. And this is unheard of. The coronal holes in the sun, they come, they go. they expand, they contract. They don't keep expanding and stay there, which is what's happened with this whole. And I will tell you guys, if you're electronics over the next couple of days, especially like Tuesday this week, start really going nuts, it's because we have a huge solar wind coming in at us. And honestly, again, you have to base this all on whether or not it's true. I always preface that because, like I said, we're only as good as the information we're given. Do they have the abilities to mock these things, to actually do this and make everybody believe? Yeah, they do. And to think they don't, that's where they've got us, because we're educated to believe they cannot do these things. This
But
is by
what
the
is the
science
end goal? What is the end goal?
Confusion, chaos, so they can literally compress the population so it's controllable again.
But then think
Because it is
about
A
not-
one world government. That's the
Yep.
official,
Yep.
you know, that's the basis
True.
of it. A one
I
world
actually-
government. That's the
I agree with
end
you.
goal.
I agree
Yep.
with Nancy and you, Jason, but we have two new players basically, which is China and Russia. Do you think they are just lay low?
No, I think China
Oh
and
no,
Russia
they'll be part
are
of the one
plans.
world government.
Now,
You
see-
think so, Jason?
Now,
right?
see, this is something that I actually wanted to emphasize because this is very important. It's not just a one world government; it's a one world religion.
Yup.
Okay,
That's
with
Bluebeam.
this
That is
with Bluebeam and the technology that HARP can provide, they can create a simulated God that will come down out of the heavens and say, I am here to deliver you from all your pain, and everybody will follow blindly. That's what the whole concept is about.
Right, because they have simple stupefied everybody again.
Right.
But my thing is that I think what you're seeing right now, all these things going on in the background, I think you're seeing a pushback. And this is my thing. I don't think Putin is in on the whole one world thing. I do not. I really do not. I really wish I could say that, because strategically speaking and geographically speaking, you know, we should be very concerned about Russia, but I don't see it that way. I'm like, I just think he's smarter than that. I think he doesn't want his people subjugated to that. And I don't think Xi Jinping is on board. I think China is on board. But I always tell people there's a big difference between Xi Jinping and China. You've got two different factions within China. You got the CCP, and then you've got the other, the other side. I said in the CCP, that's communism, and they have controlled everything for a long time.
But we are talking about 1/3 of a nation with 1.5 billion people that are communists. Well, not communists, in the party basically, are supporters directly. So we are talking a population larger than United States and Canada combined.
Correct. But mostly what? Dirt poor and not easy to actually to make. That's why everybody's gone to drones. That's why everything's gone technical in the battle.
True.
That's why
True.
I always say to people, this war will not be fought by soldiers. It's
Well,
not
then
being-
you know it
it's
doesn't
not
matter
being
if they're
announced.
dirt poor. Now they can just throw 100 crappy drones and 2 of them will hit.
And they've already tried to call
Russia,
it population several
yeah,
times.
I'm going to have to disagree with you there, Nancy. Russia's been chucking troops at the. Russia's still been using the old World War II tactics of sending wave in after wave in after wave in troops,
Yes,
especially
you know why?
during the early days.
But do you know
of
why?
the war.
Because as an old
and also why they've got North Korea involved, because they have
Oh.
more troops to throw.
No, it's kind of why our nuclear arsenals are still running off technology from the 1990s.
Mhm.
As an old hack, I can tell you why. Because it's not penetrable. It's not penetrable. These young people cannot penetrate that type. It's because it's too old.
My point was that Ukraine has been playing clever because they've been with the support of Britain, the EU, the US, and all the related countries. Because they've been getting financial support, they've been clever and been using drones. And but as far as Russia's concerned, they're still using relatively now old school sort of military tactics.
Yeah. Well, why would you throw your really advanced stuff at Ukraine where Ukraine can reverse the technology? You wouldn't. I'm telling you, if Russia wanted to crush Ukraine, they would have crushed them years ago.
Yeah, agreed.
Honestly, there's no, and they're not. I don't know why people keep thinking Ukraine is winning this war. They are not. They are not.
There are people that think that in the first place.
Yes, they're over
That's
here
what I
in the
was just
States.
thinking. Who thinks that? Who
In
thinks
the
that? I was
States,
just wondering.
do our guys think about it? Does our Congress or does our Congress not always want to throw money at Ukraine because they're winning? Is that not what they push into the
But
population?
I don't think they honestly believe that we're winning, that Ukraine's winning. They put on a front. That's their official narrative.
What
Now I can-
what
Ukraine
annoys
is
me?
winning because
Well, guys, come on.
technically
Let's
Ukraine is winning
let's
because
let's stay on
it's-
task. I mean, I really love having political discourse just as much as anybody else, but I really don't want this to turn into a political debate. You know what I mean, about who's got more power than what and things like that.
Oh no, I was just with Jiva. I was wondering who believed that.
So.
But it's the fact is that you have a swelling from a different end right now, and if you're really watching world events, you can see it.
This is
very
a
strange
big,
things
massive
happening.
conspiracy theory. Which,
Yes.
Yes,
it is.
I don't know how I feel about it. I kind of agree, but also, like, I'm usually a cynic, so
You have
I
to
don't
be,
know.
because
Do you think,
there's
Nancy
nothing-
and Jason and everybody, do you think that COVID was like a test run, part of the plan kind of thing?
yes.
Well, yeah, there's
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
called Event 201 where they actually
Yep.
had a plan, a drill for it. People went home with little stuffed animal plushies that looked like the coronavirus. This was in October of 2019. It sounds funny, Mark, but they really did. Check out hashtag Event 201. And it's a trip. It really is.
That's why the United States is getting ready to issue a warrant for Anthony Fauci, because we have the connection.
Why do you think the UN pandemic treaty is being pushed so hard? Why countries like Britain have already signed up to it?
Yep.
Yeah.
The United States didn't. Thank God Trump got back into office, because we would have been right under that too. But
who's the
didn't
blonde?
Biden?
Well,
the
the thing that
Sorry.
got me was like the World Health Organization right after the elections, they just immediately dropped all of their pressure that they were putting on all these countries. Like they were wanting to.
Ramped it up.
Well,
They
the ones they.
ramped it up in certain countries.
Well,
You'd be surprised.
they backed out of a lot of their agreements that they had. Like maybe.
Well, yeah.
Well, the WHO though was funded mainly by who? Us.
Yeah.
I know it sounded really funny, but the United States did a lot of the funding there, and we did
Still
it.
is.
Why? Because it was our bio.
Yeah.
And I've said that. I'm going to blame anybody for COVID. It's not China.
Yeah.
China, we just used their labs. It was us. It was the United States. It was Canada. It was a U.S. bioweapon.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that baffles me is why China agreed in the first place. That's why I was skeptical at the Wuhan lab leak, because I was like, how China is on board with this? But
Because
it kind
it's
of
never
makes sense if you
happened.
think about it, because they were trying to cover it up with United States, which makes sense now.
China has not been our enemy since Obama was in office. And I keep saying that people forget when we had that major housing meltdown in 2006, 2007, and we had the stimulus and the omnibus in 2008, which were the massive bills passed to bail out these companies that got us in trouble. It was China that backed that financially.
So do you think programs like HARP could be shared as well in the same
That's
manner?
why do you think they did nothing about the balloons that were floating around the country? we had spy balloons from China floating around the continental United States, and they did nothing about it.
But hey, United States
Russia has
freaked
their
out
own
about
HARP
balloons.
system, don't they?
Well,
Yep.
we seen them freaking out though, Jiva. But what actually was taking place and what.
I mean,
Well,
true.
Well,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like that could have all been just a big staging for the masses, so that everybody knows how concerned the United States is because those foreign balloons were somewhere they weren't supposed to be. You know what I mean? So it could have all just been an act. I mean,
I always said that it's a movie. We are shown
That
a
was like
movie.
their version of the drones.
Oh
It
yeah,
was
Actually,
entertaining. Not gonna lie, it was entertaining.
yeah.
Actually, the balloons remind me of something that happened in Germany in '78. If anybody knows, there was a European pop song called 99 Red Balloons
They're balloons.
back in
Yep.
'82. And it was all about an incident during the Cold War when East and West Germany was split. In East Germany, there was a fair or something, and there was a load of balloons let off, and they all floated over the wall. And the west, or the east, the opposite side, actually considered that it was a coming up to, I don't know, a nuclear war or something because of these balloons.
That's something else.
But again, we're taught, like I said, perception is everything. It's what builds societies. And when you can control a narrative and a perception, I've always said you don't know who your friends are, you don't know who your enemies are, because you don't know what backdoor deals have been done. You don't know. People don't know in the United States that part of the entire exchange with China was to put most of the mortgages held through the banking system in the United States in hock to China. They're not clearly thinking, oh, China's the enemy. Really? Then why did George Bush Sr. maximized investments in China? Why did Hillary Clinton have maximized investments in China?
Xi
the
Jinping
UK
went to school over here in
um,
the U.S. He's Western trained.
Correct.
To be fair,
I was going to say, remember.
To be fair, all of those elites, especially in political field, are jerking off each other like
yes.
for decades.
See, we know
us.
the party's getting good whenever somebody says jerking off. So we have 2 minutes left, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to wrap this up. So we are going to have to start asking for socials. Now, before we get on to the legends of the Cafe Enigma, we're going to start with the new guy. We're going to ask you, Jiva, if you would like to give us your socials so that people could find out how to reach you.
Well, I'm actually antisocial. I don't use social. But I do games. I make games. So I suggest you play games. They are weird and fun. So you're into that, you can check me out at jivapera.itch.io.
Okay.
I have some cool stuff there.
Yes, and he does, just to let you guys know. Okay, what about you, Nancy? Give us your socials.
You guys can find me on Facebook. I'm under Nancy Planeta. My name is really phonetic. It's Planet with an A on the end. Also, Wiccan Vixen will pull me up. Telegram, I am Wiccan Vixen. I'm in multiple channels. I actually run multiple channels equaling out to several thousand people. On X, you can find me as a writer on the Storm. Been on X for quite a long time. And like I said, you can always find me here on Teams in Vixen.
Okay. And now you, Jason, MC Dirty Work.
All right. You can find me at BitChute, Instagram, DLive, Rumble, or YouTube under MC_Dirty Work. That's MC_Dirty Work. And that's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. live at DLive every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern.
Okay, Dave Capione.
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook under David Champ, and you can also look on Amazon.com under my real name, David Campione, for my book, a little manual of the UFO space identification manual with beautiful color photographs that were taken in the '60s of up close of flying saucers, and none of this crap that we've been seeing for the past 50 years.
And you finally, Mark Edworthy. Let everybody know how to find you.
Just one platform, and that's mines.com under the username Medworthy.
And give us your socials, Sonia Galactic.
You can find me at my website under the contact. It's galacticfire.com, TEC instead of TIC.
All right, and you can find me everywhere. So just look on the internet and look for Roger Hansen or Gaming with Infamous or Infamous OG 1973. And with that being said, I'd like to thank everybody for being here with us on the panel. You guys are amazing. This was an awesome topic, and I would like to also thank everybody for watching. Now, before we go, I want to do a final wrap-up and also kind of give you guys a little thing to think about, okay, when it comes to this. When we have these discussions, it needs to be understood that there are a lot of insight that goes into this. People aren't just talking off the top of their heads. This is stuff that they've been discussing for years. So take that into consideration, do the research for yourself, most importantly, so remember that. That's something that's very important. Learn for yourself and don't let anybody else tell you what to think.